Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in everyone's life when they're faced with a decision, not a decision about what job to take or who to date, but a deeper choice, a choice between staying silent or speaking up, between holding back or showing up fully, between shrinking to avoid judgment or stepping forward to honor your truth. And in that moment, there's always a voice, that fearful, familiar voice that whispers, "What will people think?" And far too often, that voice wins. But tonight, I want to talk to the part of you that's tired of being ruled by that voice, the part of you that's not afraid to want more, the part of you that knows deep down fear may be loud, but regret is louder. Let's talk about what really holds us back and what it costs us when we listen to the wrong fear. There's a common belief people carry around, that living small somehow protects them, that if they don't speak too loudly, dream too big, or love too deeply, they'll stay safe. That if they keep their head down, avoid discomfort, and blend in, life will reward them with peace. But the truth is, a small life isn't safe at all. It's just quiet, and there's a very big difference between peace and quiet. One nourishes you, the other slowly erases you. People think that shrinking their life is a form of self-preservation. If you don't try, you can't fail. If you don't love too hard, you can't get heartbroken. If you don't express yourself fully, no one can criticize you, so we start to tuck pieces of ourselves away. We edit, we filter, we choose the easier path, not because it fulfills us, but because it doesn't ask us to risk anything real. But every time you hide who you are or pretend to want less than you do, you're not avoiding risk, you're living inside it. What we don't often admit is that the safest version of life is also the one where we begin to disappear. Not all at once, but piece by piece. You stop saying how you feel because it's not worth the argument. You don't apply for the job because you probably wouldn't get it anyway. You avoid dating because people always leave. You don't share your ideas because they'll think I'm foolish. So what do you do instead? You shrink, you go quiet, you settle. You convince yourself that maybe this is enough. But what if the very thing you think is keeping you safe is actually what's keeping you stuck? The truth is, most of the pain we try to avoid by living small finds us anyway. We avoid rejection and yet still feel invisible. We avoid risk and yet still feel empty. We avoid ambition and still feel unfulfilled. Living small doesn't eliminate fear, it just trades one kind of discomfort for another. And in the long run, the quiet kind is far more dangerous. Because while dramatic failures are obvious and loud and visible, regret is quiet. It creeps in slowly and it lingers. It shows up in the form of wondering what could have happened if you had just said yes, if you had just shown up fully, if you had just trusted your worth. There is no version of life that comes without some form of pain. But when you live boldly, the pain at least has a purpose. It's the kind of pain that expands you, that teaches you, that makes you stronger. When you live small, the pain is stagnant. It doesn't grow you, it drains you. That slow, quiet ache of feeling like there's more in you that you're not allowing to come out. That ache is the danger. Living a big life means letting go of the illusion that comfort equals safety. In fact, real safety comes from knowing that even when things go wrong, you'll handle it, that you have the tools to face failure and the courage to start again, that you can survive disappointment without abandoning yourself, that your self-worth is not built on what you avoid, but on what you rise above. You are not here to live a life that's just fine. You are not here to coast through, hoping you never rock the boat. You are here to shake the world in your own unique way, to express, to create, to love, to lose, to try again. And every time you choose to live a little smaller than your spirit truly wants to, you're turning your back on that mission. A small life might seem like the safer bet, but over time it will cost you the most. It will cost you your fire, your voice, your vision, your joy, not all at once, but slowly, subtly, and quietly. That's the danger no one talks about. Not the drama of failure, but the silence of never having tried. So if you find yourself playing it small, not because you want to, but because you're scared, remember this: safety isn't about hiding from life. It's about being strong enough to meet it head on, because that's where the real freedom lies, not in playing small, but in showing up fully and completely as who you are. There's a moment in everyone's life when they feel the pull to take up less space. Maybe someone made a comment that stung. Maybe they failed publicly. Maybe they were too much for someone who couldn't handle their fullness. And instead of thinking, they couldn't hold my light, they told themselves, I must have been too bright. So they dimmed. Not all at once, but slowly. They laughed a little softer, spoke a little less, edited their thoughts before sharing them, and started to live a version of life that felt safer, but smaller. You weren't made to shrink. And deep down you already know that voice inside you, the one that speaks up in quiet moments when no one's watching. It's not asking you to be louder for attention. It's asking you to be honest with yourself. To stop pretending you're okay playing small. To stop minimizing your gifts because they intimidate someone else. To stop pretending that you're satisfied with half when you know you're meant for more. There's a strange kind of comfort in shrinking because it gets you approval. It makes you likable. It keeps the peace. You blend in. You're easy. You don't ruffle feathers, but that kind of comfort is never real. It's borrowed. And it comes at the cost of your authenticity, because every time you mute your voice to keep someone else comfortable, you're telling yourself that their ease matters more than your truth. People shrink because they're scared. Scared of being seen too clearly, scared of being rejected, scared of what happens when you show the world who you are and it doesn't clap for you. But shrinking doesn't protect you from pain, it just ensures that the pain is coming from the inside out. You still lose. You just lose to yourself instead of to someone else. You weren't made to shrink to fit someone's expectations or to make someone else feel bigger in your presence. You weren't made to second guess every word, every action, every feeling. You weren't made to chase after love that only comes when you've made yourself easier to love. You were made to be felt fully, and if that makes someone uncomfortable, that says more about what they can hold than it does about what you should offer. The world doesn't need another person who plays it safe. It needs someone who is bold enough to be real, who understands that their presence isn't a burden but a gift, that their emotions aren't too much. They are the evidence of a heart that's alive, that their ambition, their dreams, their love, their voice, it's all meant to be shared, not buried. When you shrink, the people around you don't get the real you. They get the edited version. And the tragedy is that some of them might actually love the real version if you gave them a chance. But how will they ever know who you are if you keep hiding the parts that make you you? There's power in showing up as you are. There's bravery in choosing not to shrink when everything in you wants to retreat. There's a quiet strength in saying, this is who I am, and I'm not here to fit into your version of me. I'm here to live mine. You weren't made to tone yourself down. You weren't made to filter your spirit through someone else's comfort zone. And you weren't made to wait for permission to become who you already are inside. No matter what you've been told by a parent, a partner, a boss, a voice in your head, you were not born to be quiet, compliant, or invisible. Your life is not a project in editing, it's a work of art in progress. The goal isn't to erase yourself until you're acceptable. The goal is to reveal yourself until you feel aligned. So the next time you feel that instinct to pull back, to apologize for who you are, to play down your dreams, ask yourself one thing: is this actually protecting me, or is it just making me forget who I am? You weren't made to shrink. You were made to rise, to expand, to step forward, and to own the space that already belongs to you. Most people think that living big means achieving more success, more money, more followers, more validation, and that's the story we're told. Chase the goals, tick the boxes, stay busy, be impressive. But the truth is, living big has almost nothing to do with the size of your accomplishments. It has everything to do with the size of your alignment, with how closely your outer life reflects your inner truth. Living big doesn't mean having a loud life. It means having a real one, a life that matches what you value, what you believe, and what you crave on a soul, deep level. Because you can look successful on paper and still feel completely disconnected. You can have the job, the partner, the praise, and still feel like you're living someone else's story. And the moment you feel that disconnection, it doesn't matter how impressive your life looks from the outside. It will never feel like it's yours. Alignment isn't about being perfect. It's not about always knowing the exact right step. It's about listening when something inside you whispers, "This isn't it." It's about having the courage to stop chasing the things that impress people and start building the life that fulfills you. That might mean walking away from a career that once felt like everything. It might mean saying no to a relationship that checks all the boxes but doesn't touch your heart. It might mean finally admitting that you want something different than what people expected of you. And that choice, that's what it means to live big. Because living small isn't just about playing it safe, it's about pretending. Pretending you're fine when you're not. Pretending you want what everyone else wants. Pretending you're satisfied with the life that doesn't quite feel like yours. But when you choose alignment, you stop pretending. You start owning. You stop filtering yourself to fit someone else's mold and start becoming the person you were always meant to be. The truth is, alignment takes bravery. It asks you to listen to your inner voice when the world is screaming something different. It asks you to choose your values even when they cost you approval. It asks you to trust that fulfillment is more important than performance. There's nothing louder than the quiet feeling of living out of alignment. You wake up and feel heavy even if everything looks good. You go through your day with a subtle tension in your chest, a nagging sense that something is off. That's not failure, it's feedback. That's your life telling you it's time to realign. To make a different choice, to start again, but this time from the inside out. Living in alignment doesn't mean every day is perfect. It doesn't mean you'll always feel certain or confident. What it does mean is that you're being honest with yourself, with others, with the world. You're not trying to be everything to everyone. You're trying to be you fully and unapologetically. That's where your power is, not in perfection, but in presence. In choosing to live a life that's deeply true rather than widely accepted. Sometimes alignment looks like walking away. Other times it looks like showing up in a way you've never dared to before. Sometimes it means saying no. Other times it means saying yes, even when it scares you. But no matter what the path looks like, the result is the same, freedom, not because you have everything figured out, but because you're finally living from a place that makes sense to you. You stop chasing and you start attracting. You stop striving to be someone you're not, and you start remembering who you've always been. Your decisions become less about fear and more about truth. Your relationships become less about filling a void and more about sharing your fullness. And your life, it starts to feel expansive, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. That's what it means to live big, not louder, not faster, not shinier, but truer, deeper, braver. You don't get there by pushing harder. You get there by realigning with what matters, with what you value, with who you really are when no one's watching. That's the kind of life worth building. That's what it means to live big, not for the world, but for yourself. There's this moment that happens right before you take a risk, right before you speak your truth, right before you ask for what you want, right before you show the world something that really matters to you. It's that little wave of fear, that voice in your head that says, "What if they don't like it? What if they don't get it? What if they judge me?" And so often that voice wins, not because it's right, but because it's loud. Loud enough to make us pause, loud enough to make us hesitate, loud enough to convince us that staying quiet, staying hidden, staying safe is the smarter choice. But here's what no one talks about: the judgment you're afraid of. It's almost always temporary. People have short attention spans. They get distracted, they forget. Even when they criticize you, even when they laugh or misunderstand you, it passes. It stings, but it fades. What doesn't fade, though, is regret. That lingers, that sticks with you. It shows up late at night when you're lying awake, wondering what could have happened if you had been braver. It creeps into your mind when you see someone else doing what you wanted to do, and you realize you let fear talk you out of it. Regret is the slow burn. It doesn't scream, it whispers, but it whispers forever. Judgment from others usually lasts seconds, minutes, maybe a day or two. Your mind will replay it longer than they ever will. But regret can last years. It doesn't go away with time, it builds, because as you grow, you become more aware of what you gave up, of who you could have been if you had trusted yourself a little more. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is natural. Fear means you care. Fear is a sign that you're stretching, that something matters to you. But letting the fear of judgment control your choices, that's where the damage starts. Because you begin building a life based not on what you want, but on what you think will keep you safe from criticism. And what's the cost? You silence your voice. You water down your personality. You say yes when you want to say no. You say nothing when everything inside you is screaming to speak. You choose comfort over truth, and then one day you realize the life you're living doesn't even feel like your own. You can't avoid judgment. No matter what you do, someone will always have an opinion. You'll be too quiet for some, too loud for others, too ambitious, too passive, too emotional, too cold, too much, not enough. You can't win at that game because the rules always change. But you can win at the game of self-respect, of choosing your truth over their comfort, of honoring your gut even when it's inconvenient. That's what builds confidence, not being liked, but being aligned. Most people regret the things they didn't do far more than the things they did. It's the words they never said, the relationships they never fought for, the career they never pursued, the ideas they kept inside. It's the quiet choices, the ones made out of fear, that haunt them the longest. Judgment is sharp but brief. It pierces, then it passes. Regret is dull but constant. It hums in the background of your life until you finally decide to face it. So when you're about to shrink, when you're about to hide, when you feel that familiar voice telling you to stay small, ask yourself one thing. Will this fear still matter to me in 5 years? And will I be okay living with the decision I'm about to make? If you're going to carry something with you, let it be pride that you tried, not the ache of knowing you didn't. Let people judge, let them misunderstand, let them talk, but don't let them dictate the life you live. You can recover from being judged. It's much harder to recover from never becoming who you were meant to be. So let them judge, let them whisper, let them misunderstand, because their judgment will pass. But your regret, that's something you carry. Don't let the fear of being seen stop you from being real. Don't let the fear of being misunderstood keep you from being honest. The truth is, you don't owe the world perfection. You owe it authenticity. You will never regret living a life that's aligned with who you truly are, but you will regret all the moments you let fear speak louder than your voice.